Welcome, everyone, to another Conversations in the Void. I'm your host, Graveyard, joined, as always, with my off-screen producer, Salem. Make sure to say hi to Salem. He's Enigma. We like to tease him about it. But I'm pleased to introduce our guest for tonight. We've been on the many found footage Discord servers with him. He's an actor, producer, writer with works including Ask, Found Footage Finds, and Fearman. Please welcome the found footage phenom himself, Chris Vander Kaay.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for calling me a phenom. I think I'm gonna say that's the first time it's happened with me, so I'm excited.
Oh, there you go. I like to be a first. But how are you doing tonight?
Not so bad. I'm one time zone later than you, so I'm right in the middle of spooky time. It's just hitting 10 o'clock where I'm at. So, yeah, my favorite time of the evening.
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's always spooky time. Let's face it.
Right, that's a fair point. Yeah, the second that you turn us on, it's spooky time, no matter where you are and when.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. My wife got, September starts. She goes, "We're gonna start watching horror movies." I'm like, "Start."
Yeah. Do you mean when to start watching more horror movies?
Correct.
Because,
Correct. Yeah, that's really what she means is more. So
crank up the flow is what you meant.
Yes. Hey, House Benevito, how's it going? Welcome in. So, Chris, before we get into your work, stuff like that, I'd like to get to know a little bit more about you. What really brought you into the world of horror?
Well, so that's interesting. My background, I was raised by some fundamentalist Christian parents. So I was not able to watch a scary movie for most of my life, barring the scary movies that, the PG Disney movies that they made, Watcher in the Woods and that kind of stuff. Like that was the closest that I got to horror movies until I was late high school. Mm-hmm. And then I saw Halloween and Jaws sort of in close succession, and then Alien near after that. And I was sold. And I found out the hard way that not all horror movies are as good as the first three horror movies that I watched. So It was a long journey. But yeah, that was how I got into it. And it was late. I kind of didn't see most horror movies until the legal age that you're supposed to see them in theaters. So, it worked out for me. So.
Oh, yeah. I was kind of in the same boat. Like the only horror movie my parents let me watch was Jaws. And, in the Midwest, I was terrified of sharks and going in the water. There's no oceans by me. And they're like, Poltergeist. I go, cool. And I want to start watching other stuff. They go, no. Like when Jurassic Park came out, like, it's too scary for you. I'm like, I'm 9. But okay.
Yeah, I was allowed to see that one for some reason. Maybe because my parents didn't believe in dinosaurs. They thought it was okay. It was a fantasy. I don't know.
Yeah, but yeah, it's luckily I had other friends that parents didn't care what we watched, so we rent all the stuff, rented all the Halloweens at that point in time, which was the newest one was Curse of Michael Myers, my first Halloween movie that wasn't TV version.
Yeah.
Which is a happy one to start at.
Yeah, well, so for me, the first slasher film I saw was Scream, which was really confusing because it's so much a reference to everything that came before that I was like, this is really good, but I can feel that I'm missing a lot of stuff here. And so I had to sort of reverse engineer and go back.
Oh yeah. That's always the fun back in the days of going to your mom and pop shops and hoping they have all the films in the franchise. Not you're like, here's Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 5.
Yeah. That's how you end up. Video stores, especially mom and pop video stores, are how you end up just watching Warlock the Armageddon without ever having seen the first one, because that's what they had on the shelf. And then you much later find out, there was like a slightly classier first one and not quite the sort of ridiculous exploitation of the second. So
correct. Yeah. And that's how you just find the really obscure stuff because nothing else is left on the shelf at that point in time.
That's how you end up bringing home Black Roses or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, Chris, in your opinion, what do you think is kind of like the most underrated horror movie? I know your found footage is huge on your list, but overall, that just doesn't get enough love. That if you said Graveyard, you haven't seen this movie, you're going to sit down and watch it.
Yeah, well, so I will say, as much as I love found footage, there is a movie that I love that I wish everybody loved as much as me. A lot of people don't know about it, and the ones that have seen it don't love it as much as me. But I'm a diehard devotee to the film, 2008 Canadian zombie chamber film called Pontypool. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I love about it is, first of all, it's a fascinating reinvention of the zombie mythos. In fact, talking about it a little bit kind of ruins one of the surprises for it. But the thing I love about it is that it was an accidental commentary on a lot of things that I don't think it didn't know it was talking about, or it was early on and we didn't realize it was talking about it until it came full force. But it's a movie about a guy in a tiny little basement hosting a radio show in Canada when strange events start happening. And he's like one of the only people in Canada that's able to communicate with the outside world about what's happening here. But we don't really see it. We only ever hear all of what's happening. And we're just watching his face in this booth. And it's directed by Canadian stalwart Bruce McDonald. And it's $1 million movie that looks like it cost $35 million. It's beautifully shot. And it's insane. It's nonsensical. The idea of it like stretches credulity at all times, but it's really fun and bizarre. And I love a movie that takes a big swing, even if it's not a home run, but I kind of feel like that one was a home run.
Well, I mean, words have power, right?
Oh, yes. Especially gibberish. Gibberish words are the most powerful words.
Yeah, we did a podcast episode with that in Pontypool a year and a half ago, I believe. And that was my first time seeing it. But yeah, I was blown away by it, and it's just an amazing movie.
Yeah. Well, and that central performance, man, Stephen McHattie, unreal. It's crazy to me because he's such a well-known character actor that you don't think of him as being a guy that can carry a lead, but he just walked away with that movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I would love to. I don't know how they would do a sequel. I would love to see the aftermath of it because to me, it's very reminiscent of the original storytelling of World War Z. From that perspective, you don't actually really see what happens.
Yeah. Well, Tony Burgess, the writer of the book, who also wrote the script, has had an idea for a decade plus that he and Bruce McDonald have been trying to get made and just haven't been able to. So I don't know what it's about. I don't know if it would follow those characters or who knows, but yeah, I've been wishing and hoping that it was going to happen. And, I even communicated with him a little bit because I interviewed him for one of our books. And he is as interesting as you would imagine the guy who wrote Pontypool would be.
Yeah. So on kind of the flip side, I don't want to bash anything. Do you have any IP or franchise that you just don't understand why it's so like $2 billion moneymaker?
Probably, but not in the horror space. If I'm being honest, one of the things I love about the horror space is that even the stuff that I don't love, like I can kind of sort of shrug and be like, okay, yeah, well, I can see why somebody else is in this arena. It's not that's not my taste, but I get it kind of thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to, I would argue action films are the arena that I have the hardest time with. Especially when it's like, there are basically, aside from Mission Impossible and John Wick, almost any big action franchise, I like have the opposite reaction that other people do to action movies. Like I can feel my eyes drifting shut as we go into crash after crash and explosion after explosion. And it's not even a matter of like, I don't like action. It's that so much of it is so hollow in its motivations and its reason for its existence. The thing I loved about John Wick is that like you can't get a more simple story than that. Widower takes revenge when a man hurts his dog, right? Like that's I'm 100% on board with you for that. You know what I mean? You can do anything else you want after you've given me that motivation. So, but then you get into these other franchises, and I'm not going to name names, but except for Fast and the Furious, which at a certain point becomes fun because of the ludicrousness of it. I would say the first couple are really kind of like a drag, and then when they start, sending Tyrese to space, I'm back on board because it's hilarious. But yeah, I think action is really the place that sort of dulls my interests the most.
Yeah, I mean, I will name names. I am not a fan of the Conjuring universe in the slightest.
So I fell off the Conjuring universe after James Wan left. I saw the first two, and I enjoyed the first two because I think technically he's a fantastic filmmaker when it comes to just turning the screws. But he was the reason I watched the first two. So the second that he left, I was like, I don't have anything against them, but there's only so many hours in the day, and I've got a huge backlog of other movies I know I want to see. So.
Oh yeah. I said my wife and I started watching Last Rites, and we both fell asleep. So.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like that, it's funny to me that I'm like, meh, and that movie, the last one that just came out, was the biggest box office opening of all time for a horror movie, R-rated horror movie. So yeah, you never know. It's.
Yeah, I mean, it's rated R for scary. So
yeah,
it's not for blood or violence or gore or cussing or nudity.
It's to this day, I'm still amazed that there are movies that can just be scary enough to be R. Like when you go back and look at Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's like almost no blood. There's very little in the way of like, aside from the, the stuff hanging in the room and then the opening sequence on the grave, there's not a whole lot of graphic violence at all. And yet like, it's just so disturbing in its implications that it's R. Yeah, it's fascinating.
Oh yeah, because in our head we see the chainsaw go through the brother, and we actually don't. So in our original vision, in our the Mandela effect, we see all this gore and all this bad stuff, but it's off camera because it's low budget.
Yeah, well, and also it had such a demented sense of humor that I think the tone of it made people deeply uncomfortable, and I think that probably led the censors to give it an R, because they were like, if this was more grave and serious and we were showing, the terrible things that happen to these kids, kind of like how it starts. But like that entire last act is somehow broad comedy and gore at the same time,
Yeah. I got to talk to John Dugan a little bit, and he's like, yeah, it's just fun. He's like, the chicken in the cage would not make noise, so he's like, hey, you gotta be under there and start poking it to make it make noise because it's perfectly content in that small cage.
Yeah. When you read the book about what those days were like shooting in that one room, because the guy was in the makeup and he didn't want to shoot it again. So they just shot straight through and everybody's going crazy. And they basically, I think they actually cut her with the knife on her finger because they couldn't get the fake blood to work. Like, it's just insanity. And you feel every bit of it on screen, all of that chaos and insanity that was growing. He captured it on camera for sure.
For sure. I love it. And it's great stuff. But we got to get into the meat and potatoes here, Chris. I first got to find out is, do you read now? Have you found reading is okay? Or do you still want me to only?
That's so funny. That line was supposed to be a satire. And so many people have told me that like they related to that. And I was like, oh no, I was supposed to be making fun of a guy who could only like listen to an audiobook and not read a book. No, I love reading. I mostly read nonfiction about the history of film and television and horror. And that's also what I wrote in the books that I wrote. But yeah, the character I was playing, it's so funny I say character because it's named after me.
Correct.
And I'm playing him. So it's hard to say character, but there are some big differences. And that's the biggest one is that I do in fact know how to and enjoy reading.
I just got to ask because I always find that line just hysterical when I watched it. Yeah, it's interesting. You're playing yourself or a fictionalized version of yourself. I was just cast in Night Terror by Josh playing Graveyard and go, well, okay, I guess that's fair.
Yeah. Well, now you have big shoes to fill, though.
Right? I do.
I have to be a believable me, and I can't do that in real life.
No, I really can't. I don't believe myself anyway. So, in found footage, kind of like, what was your first found footage movie that really drew you into the genre as a whole?
Well, so it turns out I'm an enormous fan of, I just call them in-world camera stories because I know some people think if it's comedy, it doesn't count as found footage, or if it's mockumentary, it doesn't count as found footage. I use the term found footage as more of like a term of art of the style because it's more searchable. So that I put that, when I'm talking about it. But in-world camera movies, so like mockumentaries, live stream style stuff, Screen Life, all of that. I love all of those. And it turns out I had been a fan long before I really knew what found footage was. I loved Man Bites Dog. I saw early on from some film friends that had showed that to me. Obviously, from very early on, I think a friend of mine in high school showed me This Is Spinal Tap, which I thought was phenomenal. And so, because for me, I've always been fascinated by the idea of how a person's behavior changes when they know they're being recorded as opposed to when they don't. And obviously that filtered all the way through to Ask, which the whole premise of that movie is you get to see footage that he is releasing to the world and the stuff that he's not. And what is the difference in who he portrays himself to be publicly versus who he actually is privately.
Right.
Yeah. And so I would say that those are the two big movies that started. But when I realized what found footage was, it was the way most people did, which is through the Blair Witch Project. I literally drove to a theater in Texas an hour to go see it. So I was very excited when that came out.
Yeah, that's definitely my first one. Then learning that all that stuff, and Cannibal Holocaust obviously is a found footage one, and arguably some of the first horror one to do it. And yeah, obviously your show that you do on YouTube, and obviously found footage finds and all that stuff. It's a huge part of your filmmaking now, especially with Ask and the show you're doing. And it's funny because I consider found footage just to be it's huge in indie right now. It's been huge for a long while, and it's still rampant there. Most people don't realize it. I think it's because it's not in the mainstream piece.
Yeah. Well, and I also think part of it is that this sounds rude, and I don't mean it to, but there is usually a level of quality that any movie above a certain budget has nowadays because equipment is of a certain quality. In order to spend this much money, somebody's making you do certain things. You know what I mean? Like quality checks.
Yeah.
And that's not true with found footage. For me, that's a bonus as opposed to that's a feature, not a bug. I like the idea that there are many less gatekeepers and people stopping people from being able to make found footage. I mean, my movie cost $250, well, less than $250, but I made a whole feature film for that. And, it not only has done very well online, got a good following, but it's screening this coming Saturday. It's screening on the big screen for the second time. It played in Houston, and now it's going to be playing in Tulsa at the Circle Cinema. And so the life that this thing has had, because audiences that like found footage really like and support found footage, it means that people can make small things that they're passionate about that they probably wouldn't be able to say if they were spending a lot more money, because it can be personal, it can be weird and idiosyncratic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's the thing that I like about it the most. And I agree with you. That's why it's also successful, is because they are small. Like every found footage movie can't be Cloverfield because of how much that costs to make, that can work every once in a while, but it has to be hugely successful in order to be hugely expensive, So
we just watched the Romero trilogy, second half of his zombie trilogy, and Diary of the Dead, right?
Yep.
And I was doing research on that for the episode, and it's like this costs like $2 or $3 million to make, and I'm just going, realistically, that's something any of us could have made with that.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the reasons with that one too is that it was ironic. George Romero had been working in indie film his whole life, but indie film, not indie, you know what I mean? Like he'd been working in cinema, like having to shoot 35 millimeter. And so I think to him, like $3 million is a super cheap amount of money to make a normal movie. It's only because he hadn't done this one this way before that he did it in the more traditional style he'd been used to. Like if you tried to make a movie in, what was that, 2007, I think, you tried to make any other movie for $3 million, it still would have been pretty hard, So it's interesting. Those of us who are indie filmmakers that are making found footage are like, oh my God, do you know how many movies I could make with $3 million? It's wild.
It really is, and he shot it. Everything else he did was traditional, except the style of the shooting. They still, and that's the thing. I think found footage generally has more realistic tendencies to it, because you may have a script written out they have wanted, but you have the actors, and you kind of go with the flow. I think in a lot of sets I've been on, that what feels more natural. Just because you write it doesn't mean it also feels natural on the screen, right?
Right. Yeah, and it also depends, I think, on the shape of it. Like depending on. Because there are some things that I would consider in-world camera that are also quote unquote scripted, like they've been done, ones that start as a reality show or a game show of some sort before it goes off the rails. So there are portions of it that obviously have to be scripted because they're supposed to look like a thing that is scripted,
Right.
And so there's that element. But I agree with you when it is like true found footage in the sense of someone was just shooting footage and people were living as they actually do. It actually is sometimes much harder to write a script that sounds the way that people speak. I didn't write a script for Ask specifically for that reason. I wanted it to sound real, but also I knew I can't write a script because some of these things I'm only ever going to get one shot. I'm on this airplane one time. If I don't get this shot the way that I need it, then I'm out of luck. So I can't be worrying about trying to get the line right. I just need to know what my motivation is, say whatever I would say in the moment so it's as close to what it should be as possible. Because that's all I get. I don't get a take two, They won't land the plane a second time for me.
Right. And that's what I said. It makes it feel more real because it really is in the moment. Because let's face it, sometimes 5 shots is a lot in a found footage style.
100%. No, when I made the movie, I don't think there was a single time. There was one scene that I shot more than 3 takes on. Every single other scene in the movie was shot in 1 or 2 takes. Most of them 1 take. And it was because I was shooting in locations I stole. I was shooting, like there's that whole sequence in that incomplete house. That was just like that was a neighborhood that was still under construction. And I just went in on a weekend while no one was there prepping and just shot. Well, so that was the way I was able to make it dirt cheap, but it also meant it necessitated. I was like, I can't really have a script for most of this.
Yeah. Yeah, and you said those one shot things is really hard, especially with what we do with practical effects, stuff like that. You have that blood thing, you have that special effect. It's really hard to do it multiple times.
Yeah, well, and that final scene, we'll call it the teeth scene. You know what I'm talking about? I thought I was going to be able to do that more than once, but when we got to the point that we were going to shoot, it was raining outside. I did not have a change of clothes that matched what I was wearing. So the second I go outside, I'm going to get rained on and it's over. That's all the only take I get. So I had to do that entire sequence, which is one uncut take of me doing the full monologue, then doing the thing with the pliers, and then all of that had to happen in 1 take because I didn't get to do it again. That was nerve-wracking. And I think you can kind of see that. I think that nervous energy actually helped the scene because I was like, I can't fuck this up. This is the only one I get,
Well, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that hasn't seen it, but that nervousness, yes. I mean, with what you're doing with said pliers, it would be nerve-wracking.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and because like it's one thing if I forget a line, but like that has to look good. Like that moment has to look good because it's the climax,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the only practical effect I really have in the movie, and so like. And also, it's raining, and I don't know how rain running down my face is going to affect this moment. So there was definitely a lot of nerves about how that was going to come out. So I was pretty happy with the way that it landed. So
that's awesome. That's the scene that my wife walked in, and she's like,
oh, please apologize to her on my behalf.
She's like, I'm gonna leave now. Like,
yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you. It's you write nonfiction, you write about movies, and how does that differ for you? Then you also written dramas, differ for you for your approach to it versus horror.
I think it has to. So I kind of look at fiction as the place where I get to ask questions, and nonfiction is the place where I get to provide context, or I don't like to say answers because that makes it sound like I think I know best, but to provide context. Like for me, the point of found footage finds was not like, here are my 5 favorite movies, or here, like I didn't want it to be like a traditional sort of more like a YouTube style channel where they'll be like the top 10 found footage movies I love or whatever. For me, it was more like this episode is about this subcategory of found footage. So I'm just going to tell you everything I know about it, the whole history of it, all of the crazy movies here, whether I love them or I don't, I'm still going to tell you about them because we don't have the same taste. And this might be an amazing movie for you, even if it didn't work for me. I'm like very big tent in that respect, And so for me, it's the difference between nonfiction for me is about curation and providing context, and fiction is about being able to ask fun, thorny questions that will hopefully have people continuing to think about something after the project is over,
Yeah, and like I said, I really enjoy your found footage finds, especially you're going through your history as a whole, because I love Legend of Boggy Creek first and foremost. It's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. There's the second one, I think MST3K made fun of it, and it was fantastic. And you're going through that, and as you said, most people don't realize that it, especially with Bigfoot, started with that grainy tape that everyone knows at this point in time.
Yeah, even though they don't know the name of it, but everybody knows the jittery shot and the zoom in as it looks back over his shoulder while it's walking. I mean, it's so iconic that they've actually made fun of it in other places, and people like it registers to them that it's a satire, but they don't even know what it's satirizing. It's so fascinating that it's sort of become a bedrock like piece in our psyche, even though we're not sure why.
Yeah, it's that way. And I also realized, like when we're doing George Romero, I think Simpsons has a lot to do with it, especially for people of our age, because you think, we think of zombies, people go, oh, they eat brains. No, they don't. They eat everything.
Yep. Return of the Living Dead is what gave us the brains. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I think Simpsons popularized it and made that part of the pop culture phenomenon that is now in our head.
For sure. Well, and I mean, in The Simpsons, they joked in commentaries all the time on The Simpsons. They joke about how most people first learned about The Godfather and Citizen Kane through references in Simpsons episodes before they ever saw the movie, which is, it's fascinating to think about the idea that, it's that whole joke of where you see a meme in the wild, you see that clip. That happened to me when I was watching an episode of The Wire. It's that one where that guy goes like this out front of the store. And I saw it on the episode of The Wire and I'm like, oh my God, that's where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you talking about me and stuff like that years and years ago. I'll age myself a lot. I was driving in Chicago, and there's a Testa produce. I go, is it produce? Nope, Chuck Testa. Yeah, it's amazing that what pop culture has changed in our heads. Like, I think they drastically changed. It's the Mandela effect of even Darth Vader, what he says to Luke and Empire Strikes Back. Everyone misquotes it, and the misquotes become more popular than the actual quote.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, like the Casablanca quote, right? Play it again, Sam. It's not what he said.
Right.
If she can take it, I can take it, Sam. Play it. And that's not the quote. You just remembered it because somebody else quoted it to you, and you're remembering someone else's memory as opposed to the thing that actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that way. But I've had people on the show and found footage that they're like, oh, I don't like found footage and all this stuff. And they go, I'm just going, okay. And then they actually look me up and they go, oh,
my bad.
You do found footage. Yes, I do. Like,
yeah. Well, and listen, I always try to meet people halfway by saying, listen, if you had only been exposed to certain kinds of found footage movies, I fully understand why you think you don't like it, you know, because I say all the time, like, I'm not a fan of musicals by and large, but what I can tell you is that I love Moulin Rouge. I love Dancer in the Dark. And I could probably name, well, one of my favorite films of all time is All That Jazz. Those are not quote unquote typical musicals. They're very different, but I loved them and they fall into that category. I think the same thing is true for found footage. There are ones that you would like. The problem is that genre is, it's so much more, it's easier. The threshold to be able to make them is easier, which means more people who are maybe not great filmmakers are making them. I'm fine with that. It makes me happy to know that people have that outlet, but it also means the percentage of not high quality movies is considerably higher in this genre than in others, you know?
Yeah, because, well, back in the day, having a camera was expensive. Now we all have this,
right? Exactly. And because of that, the threshold is lower. Anybody has a studio in their pocket, but that also means that there's no boundary for you feeling like your idea is good enough to spend the time and effort on, you know? It's literally just time now. It's not money, you know, and it's not a lot of effort because it's kind of easy to edit nowadays. So yeah, there is definitely a difference in the amount of time that someone needs to spend on a thing and money. And so that, I think, conversely, it switches to like, okay, well, that's why we have thousands of found footage movies, even though they've only really been around since, the late 80s, basically.
Right. Do you think we'll ever have another found footage breakaway hit like we had with Blair Witch, and then Paranormal Activity was obviously the next huge one? Do you see the next big one coming?
So I'll say a couple of things. One, yes, I do think that will probably happen on that big scale, but I also think it is to some degree happening that I think there are monster found footage films that most of the rest of the world don't know about because of the new model of the way we watch stuff. Like the guy that created Bad Ben has so much friggin' money right now because of the model that worked for him. The same thing is happening to some degree with Horror in the High Desert. I think even on a smaller scale, I'm Haunted is now up to 5 entries. And it's because, I mean, they're not making, hundreds of millions of dollars, but they're making a lot more money than you would think a film at that level possibly could, to the degree that they're not having to get funding from anyone else. They're spending the money they made on the previous one or two to continue building. Blackwell Ghost is another good example. Like, there are more entries in some found footage franchises than there are in very popular mainstream non-found footage franchises because they're faster to make and cheaper to make. Yep. And so yes, while I do believe that there will be breakthroughs, I think that there's going to be a point at which screen life goes even bigger than it has with searching and missing. And there's going to be a point where the larger population who has now been made used to things like Zoom calls and having to work remotely, that there will absolutely be that breaking through in an even bigger way than like Unfriended in those. Yeah. But like I said, even on the smaller scale, like I think there are plenty of Roger Cormans working in the found footage arena right now, making a ton of money on very small movies,
Yeah. I think one that was really goes unnoticed is Host.
Oh yeah. Well, and also that was, I wouldn't say it broke through to massive acclaim, but it was definitely the first one that made people feel like it was a thing they could also achieve. In the same way that Paranormal Activity did it with the standard found footage style, I think Host did it with the sort of screen life style, which is to say, oh my God, these were literally just like 7 friends that were locked in their house during pandemic, and look what they created. I could do that too. It feels achievable,
Yeah, I completely agree. As long as we don't have another War of the Worlds screen life.
I have to be honest, I haven't watched it yet because I almost want to, how like sometimes you'll save the most delicious bite for last. It sounds so divisive and potentially so bad that I believe I'm probably going to enjoy it, not in the way it was intended, but I'm going to enjoy it. And so I'm just I'm waiting because I don't want to burn it and then not have that opportunity in front of me. So
yeah. All right, Chris, well, we're at a round of questions here because it's going by fast. All right. What is your favorite scary movie?
My favorite okay, so scary movie. It's got to be scary, not just a horror movie, you're saying. Because Pontypool would be my favorite horror movie. Yeah. But my favorite scary movie, I mean, it's hard for me to say. There's only one movie in the world that ever made me not want to get out of my car when I was trying to make a movie, and it was The Blair Witch Project. We drove an hour to go see it. We were going to make a parody on the way home that was going to be called The Blair Witch Project. And the joke was 4 friends drive to go see The Blair Witch Project. They were never heard from again. Their tapes are found. We were going to do a parody once we saw the movie. And then we saw the movie, and the 4 of us driving home were all too shit scared to get out of the car to shoot anything. So we never made it. So like, I don't know how I can't say that movie because no other movie has ever made me fear getting out of my car at 10:30 at night,
Deliverance.
Well, yes, for different pragmatic reasons. That's a fair point.
All right, Chris, practical or CGI?
Oh, practical all the way. Yeah. I mean, I don't dismiss CGI. Those people are talented, but there's practical stuff that was done 60 years ago that still looks fantastic now. And CGI from 1997 looks awful, you know?
Except somehow in 1993, it looks great for Jurassic Park.
Well, it's what's crazy is you look back and you watch the first Pirates of the Caribbean and it looks phenomenal. And then like 10 years later, it looks like garbage. It's like, what happened, guys? What did we do?
Yeah.
How did we shit this up so bad?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. We've discussed this on our show, is especially with like I Am Legend 2 coming out, what they should do is redo the movie and redo the CGI to make it updated so it looks good in prep for the next one, because there's going to be a big disconnection between the CGI and both of them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why that Cameron waited for so long between the sequels with Avatar, right? Because he was trying to, it's not possible to future-proof, but as much as he possibly could to future-proof the other movies that he's making. So, you know, you don't get that giant leap in difference in quality between, you know, sequels. So,
yeah. All right, Chris, someone knocks on your door tomorrow and they're, you know, nice about it. And they go, here's $1 million to create the next entry in an existing IP or franchise. What would it be?
1 million?
Mm-hmm.
I think I have. I was going to say numbers don't matter but I would say, honestly, I would probably pick. I have an idea for a Final Destination film that I think has a fantastic wrinkle in the mythology. It has maybe the coolest opening set piece, and the rest of the movie takes place in real time after the disaster, which I've never seen in the Final Destination franchise. So that would probably be my dream project. And I think it would be a phenomenal way to like cap off the series and also shoot it potentially in another direction if they wanted to keep making sequels out of it.
Would you make found footage? Should it be 3FD?
No, if I was going to do found footage, I would do a found footage Friday the 13th. Yeah, it would be about a guy who going around interviewing people who've had sightings and trying to gather all the footage, like he's a cryptid, basically. If Jason Voorhees is the cryptid of Crystal Lake. So
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So, Chris, any advice for people getting into the field of filmmaking?
Yes. I mean, well, so I've been working on a book and a course for a long time called Make Your Movie Now, which hasn't come out yet. But the whole premise of that stuff is to try and basically gift people the thing that I went through, which is like, here's all the stuff that I did. Here's the exact process that I took, the things that went right and the things that went wrong. And I spent $250. Here's how you can do it. So basically the book is called Make Your Movie Now, or the course, it's called, feature filmmaking through creativity in less than $500. Mm-hmm. And my advice would be, the first big piece of advice is make a found footage film, make a fake documentary film. Most people get a little nervous about the idea of that if they want to be taken seriously as a filmmaker, right. But tons of serious filmmakers have made found footage films. And also it's the only place where you will all have all of the control. If you're spending less than $500, you got nobody to answer to. And it may be the only time in your whole career where that's the truth. Because if someone comes along and says, hey, great job, I'd like to give you $50,000, guess what? They're going to have a lot of hoops you got to jump through now. So it may be the only project you ever have entirely all the creative control on,
Yeah, for sure. It's very true. Yeah, there's those producers and executive producers that go, hey, put this thing in here. Oh, you should change this ending. I don't like it.
Yeah, and it happens all the time. A producer loved your last project, but as soon as they're giving you money for your new one, they've got all kinds of notes for how you need to change it.
Yeah. All right, Chris, you ready for your random trivia question?
I absolutely am.
All right. Which actress reprised her role as Nancy Downs in the 2020 film The Craft Legacy?
Nancy Downs. Man, it's going to be, okay. Was it Fairuza Balk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It was her or Robin Tunney were my guesses, and I was just like, I was going to phone a friend, but I just thought I'd take the shot.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic movie. Well, the first Craft. I didn't see the second one. My wife's more of a Craft lover than I am.
Yeah. I like the first one, but I only saw it very recently. I missed it first time around. And so I don't have the nostalgia for it, but it was a good movie. So I was glad to see that it held up.
Awesome. So, Chris, before we go, where can people find you, learn everything about you and your work?
So you can follow the TV show and the movie on Facebook, Ask the Feature Film or Found Footage Finds. They have their own pages on Facebook. But if you want to follow me, I am mostly on Blue Sky, CK Vander Kaay. And And also, you can find the movie and the TV show. The Found Footage Finds is streaming on Found and also on my YouTube channel. The first 2 episodes have been released. I've been releasing them over the last few weeks. All 5 will be there before the end of October. And then Ask is a lot of places. You can see it on Amazon. You have to rent it there, but you can watch it on what do you call it? POV Horror, which is the distributor site, or you can see it on what is it called? Fawsome. I never know how to pronounce that word. Awesome. And then, of course, Tubi, the great repository for all things found footage.
Yes, it is. It really is. All our stuff's there. So.
Yeah. And then also, if you think anything I have to say is interesting and you wanted to read something, I've got about 4 nonfiction books out there about the history and philosophy of horror film. You can go look them up on Amazon. And Spoiler Alert, which is a really fun sort of infographic book about 25 well-known movie genres and all of the delightful cliches that we remember from all of them.
Yes, I have links to all those stuff in the description below. So thank you very much, Chris, for joining us. I can't wait to see your next project here that you're filming in November. I really can't.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I will be sure to let you know once it's on deck to start to work its way out into the world.
Yes.
You do a great thing here. You're doing God's work, bringing the voices of horror fans and filmmakers to the madding crowds. So I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, thank you very much, Chris. And for anyone new, follow us on all social media at Pilot Night. We're doing all sorts of things. We are hopefully filming decades of horror. We'll be doing horror shorts in the style of 1920s first. And I'm excited for that. All Seputone, of course. So we'll see you next time. Don't get lost in the void. Good night.